I remember the exact moment. It was a Tuesday, late afternoon, sun slanting through my bedroom window, painting stripes across the dusty floor. I was sorting through Mom's old jewelry box, something I did often, not because I was looking for anything in particular, but because it felt like reaching back in time, like holding her hand again. She'd been gone almost 2 years, and some days the grief was still a fresh wound, raw and aching. Other days it was a dull throb, a quiet background hum to my life. This was one of the quieter days, I thought. I was wrong. The jewelry box was nothing fancy, just a wooden box with a velvet lining, a gift from my dad to Mom on their 10th anniversary. Inside, it was a mess of tangled chains, single earrings, and costume jewelry all mixed in with the real stuff. But there was one item, one single, irreplaceable piece, that always had its own spot, a small, square, dark blue velvet pouch. Inside that pouch was her engagement ring, my mother's engagement ring. The one Dad gave her, the one she wore every single day until she couldn't anymore. The one she left to me in her will. My most treasured possession. My fingers went straight for the familiar corner of the box, feeling for the pouch. My heart was already doing that little skip beat thing it does when I get excited, just imagining touching it. I pulled out the pouch. It felt lighter than usual, too light. Cold dread, like an ice cube slipping down my spine, started to spread. I fumbled with the drawstring, my fingers suddenly clumsy, all thumbs. I pulled it open, empty. Just a small, empty, dark blue velvet pouch. My breath hitched. This wasn't possible. I dumped out the rest of the jewelry, scattering necklaces and bracelets across my bedspread. I tore through the bottom of the box, then the sides, pulling out the drawer beneath. Nothing. Just dust bunnies and a few stray beads. Panic, hot and sharp, exploded in my chest. My hands started to shake. I ran to Mom's old dresser, pulling open drawers, tossing clothes aside. Under her pillow, in her nightstand, I knew where it was supposed to be. It was always in that velvet pouch in that specific spot in the jewelry box. Always. I had just checked it last month. It was there. It had to be there. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Did I move it? Did someone accidentally pick it up? Unlikely. I lived with my older sister Sarah, and that was it. Just us two, rattling around in the house that suddenly felt too big, too empty without Mom and Dad. Dad passed before Mom, but that's another story. This one's about the ring, Sarah. A name that now tasted like ash in my mouth. A seed of suspicion, dark and ugly, began to sprout. Sarah had been acting weird lately. Distant, stressed. She'd lost her job a few months ago, and money had been tight. She was always talking about how she needed to get back on her feet, how she felt like a burden. I'd offered to help, told her we'd figure it out, but she just waved me off, saying she had it handled. But did she? My eye scanned the room, landing on Sarah's door, closed and silent down the hall. My gut screamed at me, not Sarah. She wouldn't. She knew how much that ring meant to me. She knew how much it meant to Mom. It wasn't just gold and a diamond. It was history. It was love. It was Mom. I felt a wave of nausea. I walked slowly towards her door, each step heavy, like my feet were made of lead. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of fear and disbelief. I raised my hand to knock but hesitated. What would I say? Hey, did you steal Mom's engagement ring? The one she explicitly left to me, the one I cherish more than anything. The thought itself was absurd. It was unthinkable. And yet, the empty velvet pouch in my hand felt like a lead weight, dragging me down into a pit of despair. I didn't knock. Instead, I stood there, listening to the silence of the house, broken only by the frantic pounding of my own blood in my ears. I pictured her, my sister, my only family left, doing something so unthinkable. The betrayal hit me first, a sharp physical pain that doubled me over. Then came the anger, hot and blinding. Then finally the chilling clarity. I knew, I just knew, the ring was gone. And Sarah had taken it. The next thought was immediate, cold and resolute. I was going to get it back, no matter what. Even if it meant shattering the last pieces of our family, the fragile bond we had left, the police. That was my only option. My hands were still shaking, but a new kind of resolve was building inside me. A steel core forming amidst the devastation. I had to do this. For Mom, for myself, the ring wasn't just a ring. It was a story, a legacy, a tangible piece of my mother. To understand why its absence felt like a physical blow, like a chunk ripped from my very soul, you have to understand what it meant. It wasn't the biggest diamond in the world, or the most dazzling. In fact, it was quite modest, a single solitaire set in a simple gold band. But for Mom, it was everything. Dad bought it for her when he proposed. Back when they were just kids, barely out of college, working part-time jobs to make ends meet. Mom used to tell the story, her eyes sparkling, of how Dad had saved every penny, even skipped meals sometimes, just to buy that ring. He'd surprised her with it during a picnic in the park, on a patchwork quilt Mom had sewn herself. She said yes before he even finished asking the question, tears streaming down her face. It was the first real piece of jewelry she ever owned. She wore it every single day. Through 2 pregnancies, through scraped knees and school plays, through promotions and layoffs, through the quiet joys and the inevitable heartbreaks of life. The gold band had thinned over the years, a testament to its constant presence on her finger. The diamond, though small, still caught the light, a tiny beacon of their enduring love. When Dad got sick, Mom never took it off. When he passed, she held his hand, the ring glinting against his still fingers, and whispered goodbye. It was her anchor, her connection to him, her reminder of the life they built together. And then, Mom got sick too. It was fast, too fast. In her last days, when she was barely strong enough to whisper, she called me close. My sister Sarah was there too, sitting on the other side of the bed, her face a mask of grief. Mom reached for my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. She pulled the ring off her finger, slowly, deliberate. Her eyes, usually so bright, were clouded with pain, but in that moment they held a fierce, unwavering love. "This is for you, my sweet girl," she rasped, pressing the cool metal into my palm. "Been with me through everything. It represents love, resilience, and family. I want you to have it. Keep it safe. Pass it on someday." I remember the weight of it in my hand, not just the physical weight of the gold and the diamond, but the immense weight of her trust, her love, her legacy. I started to protest. "Mom, you need it." But she shook her head, a weak smile playing on her lips. "No, I don't. I'll carry Dad in my heart. This is for you to carry us both." Sarah was silent during this exchange. I glanced at her, wondering if she felt left out. Mum had given her other things, smaller mementos, things that held meaning but not the profound, singular significance of the ring. I knew why Mom gave it to me. I was the younger sister, perhaps more sentimental, more prone to cherishing objects that carried history. Sarah was always more practical, more focused on the here and now. At least that's what I told myself. There was never any question, no sibling rivalry, or so I thought. After Mom passed, the ring became my most precious possession. I didn't wear it every day like she did. It felt too big, too sacred. Instead, I kept it safe, in that little blue velvet pouch, in that special spot in her jewelry box. I would take it out sometimes, just to hold it, to feel the cool metal against my skin, to trace the faint inscription on the inside of the band. Forever, M. Sefsar. It was my connection to them, to the warmth and safety of their love, to the family we once were, whole and unbroken. Now, that connection was severed, that tangible link gone, stolen. And by Sarah, person who should have understood its significance more than anyone besides me. She was there when Mom gave it to me. She heard Mom's words. She saw the tears in my eyes. How could she? Question echoed in my head, a relentless, torturous whisper. How could her need, whatever it was, override the sacred trust, the memory of our mother, the fragile bond of our sisterhood? My stomach churned. The she of the ring's theft wasn't some anonymous stranger. It wasn't a random break-in. It was my sister, my only remaining immediate family. Person I shared a house with, ate meals with, cried with after Mom died. The betrayal was like a physical wound, deep and festering. As I sat there, the empty velvet pouch still clutched in my hand, the weight of Mom's memory pressed down on me. I thought of her smile, her laugh, the way she hummed while she cooked. All those precious memories now tainted by this act. It wasn't just a ring that was stolen. It was a piece of my history, a piece of my peace, a piece of my mother's legacy. And the thief was my sister. The realization solidified, hardening into a cold, uncompromising resolve. I had to get it back. For Mom, for the memory, for the quiet promise I made to her in those last moments. This wasn't just about money, or even just about the sentiment. This was about principle. This was about respect. This was about everything. I didn't confront Sarah immediately. The shock was too profound, the anger too raw. I spent the rest of that Tuesday evening in my room. The empty velvet pouch, lying accused on my desk. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant sound from the kitchen where Sarah was probably making dinner, felt like a direct assault. I couldn't face her. Not yet. I needed to think. I needed a plan. The obvious solution, the one that screamed at me, was to simply ask her, "Sarah, did you take Mom's ring?" But even the thought of saying those words out loud, of hearing the accusation hang in the air, twisted my stomach into knots. What if she denied it? What if she looked me in the eye and lied? The betrayal would be magnified, the trust irrevocably shattered, and what if she admitted it? What then? Would I demand it back? Would she even have it? My mind immediately jumped to the worst-case scenario. A pawn shop. That's what people did when they needed cash quickly and desperately. I knew Sarah was struggling. After she lost her marketing job, she tried freelance work, but it wasn't consistent. Bills were piling up. I'd heard her on the phone, hushed conversations about overdue notices and needing to find a solution. I'd offered to split the mortgage more evenly or loan her money, but she'd refused, her pride too big to let her accept charity, as she called it. She was always fiercely independent, almost to a fault. But this was beyond independent. This was desperate. This was criminal. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, the silence of the house amplified by my racing thoughts. The ring was a unique piece. It had Mom's tiny birthstone engraved on the inside, next to Forever M. Splasar. It also had a very slight, almost imperceptible scratch near the setting, from when Mom caught it on a rusty nail while gardening years ago. I knew these details intimately. If it was pawned, those details would identify it. The question wasn't if Sarah took it. Deep down, I knew she did. The question was what I was going to do about it. My first instinct was protection. Protect Mom's memory. Protect the ring. My second instinct, almost as strong, was to protect Sarah. She was my sister, my only remaining immediate family. We'd been through so much together. Losing Dad, then Mom. We were supposed to be a team, to lean on each other. Calling the police on my own sister felt like tearing a gaping hole in the fabric of our family, one that could never be mended. It felt like an act of self-destruction. But what was the alternative? Let her get away with it. Let Mom's most precious gift to me disappear into the murky depths of a pawn shop, never to be seen again. Let the memory of Mom be desecrated by such an act. I tried to imagine Mom. What would she want me to do? She was kind, compassionate, but she also had a fierce sense of right and wrong. She valued honesty and integrity above all else. She taught us to stand up for what was right, even when it was hard. She wouldn't want me to just let it go. She would want me to fight for what was hers, for what was ours. The internal battle raged within me. Love for my sister versus loyalty to my mother's memory. The pain of betrayal versus the pain of tearing our family apart. It felt like I was standing at a crossroads, and both paths led to unimaginable heartbreak. By morning, the decision, though agonizing, felt clear. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't betray Mom's trust, and I couldn't let Sarah continue down whatever dark path had led her to this. Maybe this was a wake-up call she desperately needed. Maybe hitting rock bottom was the only way she'd climb back up. My hands still trembled as I brewed coffee. Sarah was already up, sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling on her phone, looking pale and tired. She glanced up as I entered, a faint, almost nervous smile on her face. "Morning," she mumbled, not quite meeting my eye. "Sleep well?" I just stared at her, my throat tightened. The words were there, bubbling up, but they wouldn't come out. How could she sit there so casually, after what she had done? The anger flared, momentarily overriding the pain. "I need to go out," I managed, my voice sounding strained, even to my own ears. "I have something important to take care of." Her brow furrowed slightly. "Oh? Everything okay?" I almost laughed. "Everything okay?" My mother's ring was stolen by my sister, and I was about to report it to the police. "No, Sarah, nothing was okay." "No," I said, my voice barely a whisper, but firm. "No, it's not." She looked at me, then truly looked, and for a split second I saw it in her eyes. A flicker of fear, a shadow of guilt. It confirmed everything. The air in the kitchen grew heavy, thick with unspoken accusations and simmering dread. She knew I knew. Or at least, she suspected. I turned away before she could say anything else. I couldn't bear to see her face, to hear her voice, knowing what I was about to do. I walked out of the kitchen, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. The decision was made. The path was chosen, and there was no turning back. The local police station wasn't far. Each step I took towards it felt like walking into a storm. But I had to. For Mom. For the ring. For the truth. The police station was exactly what you'd expect. Stark, utilitarian, filled with the low hum of fluorescent lights and the distant chatter of radios. It smelled faintly of stale coffee and disinfectant. I felt ridiculously out of place, like I was walking into a scene from a television show, not real life. My hands were clammy, and my heart was doing a frantic drum solo against my ribs. I approached the front desk where a stern-looking woman with kind eyes sat behind a thick pane of glass. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice surprisingly gentle. "Yes," I managed, my voice cracking slightly. "I need to report a theft." She nodded, slid a clipboard with a form towards me. "Fill this out, please. And take a seat when you are done. Someone will be with you shortly." The form was simple enough, but filling it out felt like signing a death warrant for my family. Name, address, contact info. Type of crime: theft, item stolen. 1 engagement ring. Value, I hesitated. How do you put a monetary value on something priceless? I wrote down an estimated market value, but it felt insulting, a gross underestimation of its true worth. Then came the part about suspect information. My hand hovered over the line. Sarah's name. My sister's name. My stomach tightened into a knot. This was it, the point of no return. I took a deep breath, fighting back the urge to just crumple the paper and run. But I couldn't. I thought of Mom's kind eyes, her gentle smile, the weight of the ring in my palm as she gave it to me. I thought of the empty velvet pouch, and I wrote it down. Sarah Miller, my sister. I also wrote down the details about the ring. Single solitaire, simple gold band, small birthstone engraving inside, the slight scratch. Anything that would help them identify it. And then, the most crucial piece of information, the one that had solidified in my mind overnight: the pawn shop. I had been doing some frantic research online. There were a few pawn shops in our area. Closest one, Lucky Finds Pawn and Jewelry, was known for being a bit shady, always advertising cash for gold. It was the kind of place Sarah might go if she was desperate. I wrote down their address, a wave of cold certainty washing over me. When I finished the form, my hand was still shaking. I handed it back to the woman, who took it without a word, her expression unreadable. I sat down in one of the hard plastic chairs in the waiting area, trying to calm my racing mind. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Every time the door to the back room opened, I flinched, expecting to see Sarah there, already arrested, her face accusing me. Finally, a young police officer, Officer Davies, called my name. He was tall, serious, but his eyes were kind, almost sympathetic. He led me to a small windowless interview room. The air was thick and still. He sat opposite me, a notepad open, pen poised. "So, you are reporting a stolen ring?" I nodded, my throat dry. "Yes, my mother's engagement ring. It was given to me after she passed away." "And you believe you know who took it?" he asked, his voice calm, professional. I swallowed hard. "Yes, my sister, Sarah Miller." He didn't react, just wrote it down. "Can you tell me why you suspect her?" I explained about her financial struggles, her refusal of my help, her recent, distant behavior, and the absolute certainty I felt when I found the empty pouch. I didn't try to make excuses for her, though a part of me desperately wanted to. I just laid out the facts, flat and bare. "And you think she might have pawned it?" he asked. "Yes," I confirmed. "I think she might have taken it to Lucky Finds Pawn and Jewelry. It's the closest one, and she's been desperate for money." He wrote down the address I provided. "Okay, so here is what's going to happen. We'll open a case. We'll go to the pawn shop and check their inventory. See if the ring matches your description." Most pawn shops log their items carefully, especially valuable ones, and they have to report to local law enforcement. If we find it, we'll try to recover it. As for your sister, if we find evidence linking her to the theft, she could be arrested. Do you understand the implications of that? My stomach dropped. "Yes," I whispered. "I understand." The words felt hollow, like they belonged to someone else. I understood, but understanding didn't make it any less agonizing. "It's a difficult situation," he said, his voice softening slightly. "But we have to follow protocol. We'll do our best to get your property back." He explained the process, the forms I'd signed. He told me they would contact me, likely within 24 to 48 hours if they found anything. He assured me they would handle it discreetly, though I knew discreetly was a relative term when dealing with police investigations. I thanked him, stood up, and walked out of the station. The sunlight outside felt too bright, too harsh after the dim, sterile interior. The world felt different, irrevocably altered. I had done it. I had called the police on my own sister. The relief I expected wasn't there. Instead, there was just a profound, crushing emptiness. The knowledge that I had set something in motion that I couldn't stop. Something that would tear our already fragile family apart for good. The ring was not yet back. But the betrayal had already begun to unravel everything. The hours after leaving the police station stretched into an agonizing eternity. Every minute felt like an hour, every hour a day. I walked through the motions of my life, but my mind was a chaotic storm of emotions. Anger, regret, fear, a deep, pervasive sadness. I avoided Sarah. I stayed in my room, pretending to be busy, listening to music through headphones. Anything to block out the sounds of her moving about the house. I could feel her presence, a silent accusation hanging in the air between us. She didn't confront me. She didn't ask what was important enough to make me look like I was about to burst into tears. She just let the silence fester. It was a cold war of unspoken words, and the tension was unbearable. Sleep was impossible. My mind replayed every moment of Mom giving me the ring. Every memory of her wearing it, every detail of the empty velvet pouch. Then it shifted to Sarah's face, her tired eyes, the faint lines of worry etched around her mouth. I wondered what had driven her to this. Was it just money? Or was there something deeper? A desperation I hadn't seen, a cry for help I'd missed. The Reddit-style part of me wanted to post this whole story online, to ask strangers, hate her for reporting my sister. But I couldn't. This wasn't a hypothetical. This was my life. My family, shattering in real time. And the answer I knew was complex. No, I wasn't wrong to want my mother's irreplaceable ring back. But yes, the consequences of my actions would be devastating for my sister. And for me too. The hearth-breaking aspect was becoming brutally clear. The hardest part was the doubt. What if I was wrong? What if she hadn't taken it? What if some stranger had broken in so stealthily that we hadn't noticed? But the house showed no signs of forced entry. Nothing else was missing. And the way Sarah had looked at me that morning, that fleeting look of guilt and fear, it was too real. My gut screamed Sarah. Still, the what-ifs tortured me. What if she went to jail? What if this ruined her life permanently? She was already struggling. Would this push her over the edge? Would she ever forgive me? Would I ever forgive myself for being the one to inflict this pain? Even if it was technically her own doing. I remembered a conversation with Mom once about forgiveness. She said forgiveness wasn't about forgetting what happened, but about letting go of the anger and resentment so you could heal. She said it was often harder to forgive those closest to you because the betrayal cut deeper. This felt like a betrayal so profound. I wondered if healing was even possible. I tried to distract myself. I cleaned the house, something I rarely did with such fervor. I rearranged furniture, scrubbed the bathroom tiles until they gleamed. Anything to keep my hands busy, to keep my mind from spiraling. But every time I passed Mom's old jewelry box, sitting empty on her dresser, the hollow ache in my chest returned. I cooked dinner that night, an elaborate meal that no one really ate. Sarah picked at her food, avoiding my gaze. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the clinking of forks against plates. It was the longest, most uncomfortable meal of my life. When she finally pushed her plate away and muttered something about being tired, I just nodded, unable to form words. I felt a profound sense of loneliness. My parents were gone. My sister, the one person I had left, was now separated from me by a chasm of distrust and accusation. Even if the ring came back, would our relationship ever recover? Could it? The thought was a bitter pill to swallow. The phone rang the next afternoon. I jumped, my heart leaping into my throat. It was an unknown number. I stared at it, my breath catching. This was it. I answered, my voice a shaky whisper. "Hello? This is Officer Davies," a calm voice said. "I am calling about the report you filed yesterday." My hands tightened around the phone. "Yes." "We went to Lucky Finds Pawn and Jewelry this morning," he said. "We found a ring matching your description." A wave of relief, so powerful it almost buckled my knees, washed over me. It was found. The ring, my mother's ring. "Oh my God," I breathed, tears pricking at my eyes. "Thank you. Thank you so much. It has the interior engraving you mentioned, and the scratch," he continued. "See here is no doubt it's your mother's ring." But then, his voice took on a more somber tone. "We also have information that confirms who pawned." My heart, which had just soared, plummeted back down to earth. I knew what was coming. I knew, but hearing it confirmed, hearing the official word, was still a punch to the gut. "Sarah Miller," he stated. "She pawned it a week ago." The name hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. The last sliver of doubt, the faint hope that I might have been wrong, extinguished like a candle in a strong wind. It was her. It had always been her. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "We need to formally process the ring for return to you," he said. "And we'll be speaking with your sister. Would you be willing to come down to the station this afternoon?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. My voice was firmer now, a new kind of resolve settling in. The wait was over. The agonizing uncertainty was gone. Now only the difficult, painful truth remained, and the consequences. Getting to the police station felt different this time. The first visit, I was a bundle of nerves and raw emotion, clinging to a thread of hope. This time there was a grim determination, a cold clarity. The ring had been found. Sarah had been confirmed as the one who pawned it. The die was cast. Officer Davies met me in the lobby. He looked even more serious than before. "Miss Hayes," he greeted. "Thank you for coming in." He led me to a small room, not an interview room this time, but more like a consultation office. On the table, nestled in a clear plastic evidence bag, was the ring. My breath caught in my throat. There it was, my mother's ring. It looked small and fragile inside the bag, almost lost. But I recognized it instantly. The way the tiny solitaire caught the overhead light, the simple gold band, the faint shimmer of years of wear. It was undeniably hers. Undeniably hers. Undeniably hers. Undeniably hers. Undeniably hers. I felt a rush of emotions, profound relief that it was safe, a surge of possessiveness, and then immediately a deep, aching sadness. It was back, yes, but at what cost? "Is this it?" Officer Davies asked, his voice gentle. I nodded, unable to speak, my eyes fixed on the ring. "Yes, that's it. We checked the serial numbers, the engravings, and the unique identifying marks you mentioned," he explained. "It all matches perfectly. The pawn shop owner, Mr. Jenkins, confirmed that Sarah Miller pawned it last week. He had her ID on file as required." My head swam so, she hadn't even tried to hide it. She used her real name, her own ID. Was it desperation, or a strange form of resignation? He said she seemed distressed. Officer Davies continued almost as an aside. Said she looked like she hadn't slept in days. That detail, small as it was, hit me hard. Distressed. Of course she was distressed. She was selling her dead mother's ring given to her sister to a pawn shop. What kind of desperation leads to that? So what happens now with the ring? I managed to ask, tearing my gaze away from the plastic bag. We need to hold on to it as evidence for a little while longer, he explained. Just until the case is fully processed. Once we've documented everything, it will be returned to you. Usually that means within a few days, depending on how quickly things move with your sister. What about her? Officer Davies sighed, a quiet, almost sympathetic sound. We've already sent officers to your address. They're speaking with her now. She'll likely be brought in for questioning, depending on what she says, and the evidence charges will be filed. The words, charges will be filed, hung in the air, cold and heavy. My sister arrested. The thought was a sharp pang in my chest. This wasn't some abstract consequence. This was Sarah. My Sarah. What kind of charges? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Theft, he stated. Potentially grand larceny, depending on the official valuation of the ring, and potentially a misdemeanor for pawning stolen property. Like something you read about in the news, not something that happens in your own home with your own sister. Is there anything I can do? I asked, my voice laced with a desperation I hadn't realized I felt. To lighten it for her. He looked at me, his gaze steady. Miss Hayes, you've reported a crime. It's now in the hands of the legal system. Your cooperation is important. We understand this is a difficult family matter, but the law is the law. We have to proceed based on the evidence. Paused, then added, you could indicate to the prosecutor that you wish for leniency, if that's what you truly feel. But the decision ultimately rests with the district attorney and the courts. Leniency. Could I ask for leniency for someone who had betrayed me so deeply? Someone who had stolen something so sacred. The anger which had been simmering beneath the surface threatened to boil over. But then I looked at the ring again, small and vulnerable in the evidence bag, and I thought of Mum. And then of Sarah, distressed and desperate. The emotions swirled, contradictory and painful. Officer Davies handed me some paperwork, official forms confirming the identification of the ring, explaining the evidence process. I signed them numbly, my hand moving automatically. We'll be in touch regarding the return of the ring, he said as he led me out. And we'll let you know when your sister's situation is clearer. I walked out of the police station feeling like a ghost. The sun was still shining, people were going about their daily lives, but I felt detached, like I was moving through water. The ring was found. That was good, but at what cost? My mind raced back to the house. Sarah was there, the police were there. Confrontation I had avoided was happening now, without me, in our own home. The home that Mom and Dad had made filled with love and laughter. Now it was a crime scene, a place of betrayal and despair. I wanted to run home, to see what was happening, to confront her myself. But I also wanted to hide, to pretend none of this was real. Cold, unfeeling bureaucracy of the police station had done its job. It had confirmed my worst fears and set a devastating chain of events in motion. All that was left was to face the fallout. I drove home in a daze. The drive felt both too long and too short. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. As I turned onto our street, I saw it. A police car parked in front of our house, its lights off, but its presence an undeniable beacon of crisis. My breath hitched. This was it. No more imagining. No more agonizing over hypotheticals. This was real. I pulled into the driveway behind the police car, my engine still running, but I couldn't bring myself to turn it off. I just sat there staring at the familiar house that now looked alien, ominous. The front door was ajar, a sliver of darkness visible. Finally, I forced myself to cut the engine. The silence was deafening. I got out, my legs feeling like jelly, and slowly walked towards the front door. I could hear muffled voices from inside, low and indistinguishable. As I stepped into the foyer, the voices became clearer. Officer Davies, the same one who'd interviewed me, was there, and another officer, a woman, and Sarah. Sarah was sitting on the couch, her shoulders slumped, her face pale and streaked with tears. Her hair was messy, and she looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. The female officer was standing over her, holding a notepad. Officer Davies was leaning against the doorway to the kitchen, watching. When Sarah saw me, her head snapped up. Her eyes, red-rimmed and swollen, met mine. And in that moment, all the unspoken words, all the silent accusations, all the years of sisterly bond and shared grief, erupted into a singular, devastating look. It was a look of raw hurt, profound betrayal, and a deep, crushing despair. It was the look of someone who knew their life was irrevocably altered, and I was the cause. My heart shattered. Despite everything, despite the anger and the theft, seeing her like that, broken and vulnerable, twisted something inside me. She admitted it. Officer Davies said quietly to me, his voice low, as if to spare Sarah. She told us she pawned the ring. Sarah didn't look away from me. Her lips trembled. "I am sorry," she whispered, her voice hoarse, barely audible. "I am so sorry." The words, simple and profound, hit me harder than any shout or accusation. They were real. She wasn't fighting it. She wasn't denying it. She was just broken. "Sarah Miller," the female officer stated, her voice flat, official. "You are under arrest for the theft of an engagement ring. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you." My sister flinched, as if physically struck by the words. She tried to say something, but her voice failed her. Tears streamed down her face. The officers gently but firmly handcuffed her. The metallic click echoed in the silent house, a death knell for our family as I knew it. Sarah didn't resist. She just let them take her arms, her head still turned towards me, her eyes locked on mine. "I didn't know what else to do," she choked out, her voice ragged with despair. I was so desperate. I wanted to reach out, to pull her into a hug, to tell her it would be okay, to tell her I understood. But I couldn't. I just stood there, frozen, watching my sister, my only family, being led away by the police. The anger I'd felt earlier had dissolved, replaced by a profound, overwhelming sadness. It was like watching a part of myself being taken away. Officer Davies paused at the door. "We'll contact you with information about her arraignment. The ring will be released to you within a few days." He and the other officer led Sarah out the door. I watched through the window as they put her in the back of the police car. She didn't look back. Car pulled away, its tires crunching on the gravel, and then it was gone. The silence that descended upon the house was absolute, heavier than any I had ever experienced. It was the silence of a house where a heart had just broken. I walked slowly to the couch where Sarah had been sitting. I could still see the faint imprint of her body, the small wet patch on the cushion where her tears had fallen. I sank onto the couch, feeling utterly, completely alone. The house that had once been filled with my parents' love, and then our shared grief, now felt hollowed out, haunted by the specter of betrayal and consequence. I had gotten the ring back. Almost. But I had lost my sister, and in doing so, I felt like I had lost another piece of my mother too. Mom wouldn't have wanted this, but what else could I have done? The question was a cruel echo in the empty house. There was no good answer, only pain. Days turned into a blur. The house felt like a tomb. I ate little, slept less, haunted by the image of Sarah's tear-streaked face as she was led away. The ring was formally released to me a few days later, just as Officer Davies had promised. I held it in my hand, the cool metal, a stark contrast to the burning ache in my chest. It was back, but its presence now felt heavy, burdened by the cost of its return. It no longer felt like a symbol of love and legacy, but of betrayal and despair. Sarah was released on bail, set by some distant family relative, an aunt, who probably felt obligated. She didn't come home. She went to stay with the aunt. The aunt called me, her voice cold and sharp, full of accusation. "How could you do this to your own sister?" she demanded. "Your mother would be ashamed." Her words were like daggers, twisting the already raw wound. I tried to explain, to make her understand the depth of the ring's meaning, the violation I felt. But she wasn't listening. Her loyalty was with Sarah, the one who was struggling. I hung up, feeling even more isolated. Then a letter arrived. A handwritten envelope, Sarah's familiar messy script on the front. My hands trembled as I opened it. It wasn't just an apology. It was a confession, a desperate plea, an explanation of the abyss she had been living in. "My dearest, my name. I know to hear is nothing I can say to make this right. I know you hate me. You have every right to. I stole Mum's ring, your ring, the most precious thing we had left. And I am so sorry. I wanted to tell you why, not as an excuse, but because I need you to understand. I was drowning. After I lost my job, everything just spiraled. I tried to find new work. I really did. But nothing was coming through. My savings were gone. I maxed out my credit cards. Then the eviction notice came for my old apartment, the one I couldn't afford anymore. That's why I moved back in here. Remember? You were so kind telling me it was okay. No rush with rent. But I felt like such a failure, such a burden. I started gambling. Just small amounts at first. Online. Slots. I kept telling myself it would be a quick fix. One big win and I could get back on my feet. Pay off my debts. Prove I wasn't a screw-up. But it just got worse. I chased losses. I lost everything. I had borrowed money from terrible people. People who didn't take no for an answer. They were threatening me. Threatening to come to the house. Threatening you. I couldn't let that happen. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't ask you for more money, not after all the offers I'd already refused. Not after I'd failed so spectacularly. I saw Mom's jewelry box one day open on your dresser. I saw the blue velvet pouch. My heart pounded. I told myself, no, absolutely not. But then I thought about the threats, about the fear, about the absolute hopelessness. I saw it as a way out, just a temporary loan, I told myself. I would get a job, get the money, and buy it back before you even noticed. I swear that's what I told myself. I was so desperate, I convinced myself it was a viable plan. I took it to Lucky Finds. I hated myself every step of the way. Mr. Jenkins looked at me like he knew what I was doing, like he knew the shame I carried. I got a pittance for it, just enough to pay off the immediate threat. To buy myself a few more days, I cried. The whole way home I knew, even then, what I had done. I knew I had crossed a line I could never uncross. I couldn't look you in the eye. I couldn't speak. Every time you looked at me, I saw Mom in your eyes, and I felt sick with guilt. When you said you were going out to take care of something important, and you looked at me the way you did, I knew. I knew you knew. And honestly, a part of me was relieved. Relieved the secret was out. Relieved the pressure was gone, even if it meant losing you too. I deserve everything that's coming to me. I deserve your anger. I deserve your anger. I deserve to be arrested. I deserve to lose everything. I just hope one day you can understand how truly desperate I was. Not that it makes it okay. It doesn't. It will never be okay. I love you, little sister. I always have. And I am so sorry, Sarah. I read the letter again and again until the words blurred through my tears. Desperation, gambling, threats. My sister, cornered and terrified, doing the unthinkable. It didn't excuse her actions, not entirely. The betrayal still cut deep, but it added a layer of profound, agonizing understanding. She wasn't malicious. She was drowning. She was scared. And she had nowhere else to turn. My mind reeled. She'd been threatened. Outhouse me? The thought sent a fresh wave of fear and sadness through me. She had been carrying this burden alone in secret, spiraling into a nightmare, while I had been oblivious, caught up in my own grief. I had offered help, but maybe not the right kind of help. Maybe I hadn't truly seen her desperation. The anger was still there, but it was now mixed with a crushing empathy, a profound sorrow for her. She had been willing to sacrifice her relationship with me, her last shred of dignity, to protect me from these threats. The ring was a symptom, not the root cause. The root cause was her pain, her fear, her addiction. The hearth-breaking story had just taken a new, more complex turn. It wasn't just about a stolen ring. It was about brokenness, desperation, and the devastating ripple effects of hidden pain. And I was left holding the ring and the pieces of our shattered family. The ring was back. It lay in its velvet pouch on my nightstand, exactly where it used to be. But nothing felt the same. Holding it now, it didn't spark the same warm memories of Mom and Dad. Instead, it felt heavy, burdened by the weight of Sarah's desperation, her betrayal, and the legal battle that now defined our relationship. I picked it up, letting the cool gold rest in my palm. I traced the simple band, the small solitaire. I could almost feel Mom's presence, her gentle touch. But then, the image of Sarah's tear-streaked face flashed in my mind, and the memory of her whispered, "I am sorry," echoed in my ears. The ring was no longer just a symbol of love. It was also a symbol of pain, of a family fractured. I found myself staring at the tiny inscription inside. Forever, Enzav Sar. Forever. What did that even mean now? Our family, once a unit, was fragmented. Mom and Dad were gone. Sarah was facing charges, alienated, staying with our aunt. And I was here, alone in the house with the very thing that had caused all this pain. The prosecutor's office called. They outlined the charges against Sarah. Theft, a felony, given the value of the ring. They asked if I would be willing to testify. My stomach clenched. Testify against my sister? Standing in court, recounting the betrayal while she sat there broken. The thought was unbearable. I remembered what Officer Davies had said. I could ask for leniency. After reading Sarah's letter, my feelings were a chaotic mess. My initial anger had given way to a profound sadness and a desperate desire for things to be undone. But they couldn't be. The theft happened. The report was filed. The legal wheels were turning. I called the prosecutor's office back. My voice was shaky, but I tried to sound firm. I understand the need to prosecute, I said. But my sister is not a malicious person. She was in a very desperate situation. She has a gambling addiction, and she was being threatened. I would ask, if possible, for the court to consider a plea deal that focuses on rehabilitation, rather than just punishment. There was a pause on the other end of the line. We can certainly note your wishes, the prosecutor said, her tone neutral. However, the decision rests with the court. A felony conviction for theft is serious. It can lead to significant jail time, or, at the very least, strict probation and a criminal record. Jail time. The words hung in the air, cold and stark. Sarah in jail. The thought is unbearable. My sister, who had always been so independent, so proud, reduced to that. I thought about the gambling, the threats. This wasn't just Sarah being selfish. This was Sarah being trapped, desperate, making terrible choices out of fear and a spiraling addiction. Did she deserve to go to jail for that? Maybe a part of me, the part that was still angry and hurt, thought yes. But the larger part, the part that loved her and remembered our shared childhood, screamed no. She needed help, not just punishment. The ring, nestled in its velvet pouch, seemed to pulse with a muted, tragic light. It had once been a symbol of unwavering love. Now it was a constant reminder of how easily that love could be fractured, how quickly trust could crumble, how deep desperation could run. I decided I needed to visit her, not at the jail but at our aunt's house. I needed to see her face to face outside the sterile environment of a police station. I needed to understand, truly understand what had happened. And maybe, just maybe, start to figure out if there was a path forward. A path to something resembling forgiveness, if not full repair. The thought of facing her filled me with dread, but also a strange sense of necessity. The ring was physically back, but emotionally it was still lost, tarnished by the circumstances of its return. I knew the only way it could ever regain its true meaning was if Sarah and I could find a way to heal, to rebuild, even if it was just a fragile connection. I gently put the ring back in its pouch, back in its special spot in Mum's jewelry box. It was safe now, physically, but its spiritual safety, its purity of meaning was still hanging in the balance, dependent on what happened next, on how we, as sisters, navigated the broken pieces of our shared life. The weight of it, the tarnished treasure, felt heavier than ever. The visit to Aunt Carol's house was excruciating. Sarah looked even worse than she had at the police station. Gaunt, hollow-eyed, she seemed to have shrunk, physically and emotionally. Aunt Carol hovered, her gaze cold and accusatory towards me. We sat in the living room, a strained silence hanging heavy. I started by telling Sarah I'd read her letter. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't say anything. "Sarah," I began, my voice thick with emotion, "why didn't you ask for help? I would have helped you. I tried to." She finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I was ashamed, so ashamed, and I thought I could handle it. Just one more bet, just one more loan. It spirals so fast. And when they started threatening you, threatening the house, I panicked. The ring was there. It was so stupid, so wrong, I knew it. But I couldn't think straight. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I just wanted to make it stop. I wanted to protect you. It wasn't an excuse, but it was an explanation. Her words were laced with true remorse and despair. My anger, which had been flickering, finally extinguished. All that was left was profound sadness. I told the prosecutor I want leniency for you, I said quietly. I told them about the gambling, about the threats. I said I want you to get help. Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise, then something akin to gratitude. You did that, she whispered. I nodded. You need help, Sarah. Real help, not just punishment. Aunt Carol, who had been listening with a grim expression, finally intervened. She's going to therapy, she said stiffly. And she's going to Gamblers Anonymous. It's going to be a long road. I know, Sarah said, her voice stronger now, laced with a faint thread of hope. I know it is, and I deserve it. I just thank you for not completely abandoning me. Talked for a while longer, stumbling through difficult truths, airing out old wounds that had festered in silence. There was no grand reconciliation, no tearful embrace that magically fixed everything. The trust was broken, perhaps irreparably. The family bond was stretched thin, frayed at the edges. But there was a crack, a tiny opening for understanding. Sarah's legal process was indeed long, because I was the primary victim, and had expressed a desire for leniency and rehabilitation. The prosecutor eventually agreed to a plea deal. Sarah pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of grand larceny, which was still a felony, but carried a suspended sentence. She was ordered to pay restitution, though I told them I wouldn't accept it. I just wanted her to get help, but the law requires it. Perform community service, and most importantly, undergo intensive mandatory therapy for her gambling addiction, with regular check-ins and drug tests. It was a heavy sentence, but it kept her out of jail. The ring stayed with me. I put it back in Mom's jewelry box, in its special spot. I still took it out sometimes to hold. It was still beautiful, still carried the faint warmth of Mom's presence. But now, it was also a tangible reminder of the fragility of life, the hidden struggles people face, and the devastating consequences of desperation. It was a symbol of love, yes, but also of betrayal, forgiveness, and the long, arduous journey of healing. Sarah and I didn't return to our old closeness. We couldn't. Too much had happened. But we started to talk, slowly, tentatively. Weekly phone calls, then occasional, awkward coffee meetups. She shared about her therapy, the challenges of recovery. I listened. Sometimes, I shared about my own loneliness, my own lingering pain from losing our parents. We were both broken in different ways, trying to piece ourselves back together. The hearth wasn't completely broken, but it was badly cracked. The warmth that once filled our home, the easy laughter and comfort of family, was gone. It was replaced by a quiet, cautious hope. Hope that Sarah could rebuild her life. Hope that I could truly forgive. Hope that one day the ring, our mother's legacy, could once again symbolize only love and not the devastating cost of a sister's desperate act. It was a long road. It still is. There are days when the anger flares, when the betrayal feels fresh. But then I remember Sarah's letter, her desperation, and the quiet courage it took for her to admit everything. And I remember Mom, and her belief in forgiveness. The ring is a reminder of Mom, of course. But now, it's also a reminder of the complex, messy, heartbreaking truth of family. A reminder that sometimes, The ones we love the most can hurt us the deepest. And that healing, like the slow mending of a shattered heart, takes time, courage, and an understanding that some scars never truly disappear, but they can eventually fade into something bearable.